I want you to make sure that you review the information that's in chapter 18 of the text, because it's helpful for you as just kind of a general information, as well as, the quiz is going to be based on chapter 18. So it's going to be important that you look at chapter 18 about speaking to inform. But I wanted to make this PowerPoint, this little mini lecture, a little bit more specific to this class. So let's take a look at informative topics. I touched on this when we were talking about topics. But nouns, 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 person, place, thing. In the informative speech, you're the teacher. You do not try to convince us that something is good or bad, right or wrong, get us to do something. If you think you're going to do this with your topic, then don't use it for the informative speech. My suggestion is always to save that for the persuasive speech. So let's say, see if we think will it work. So let's imagine that you are an EMT, an emergency medical technician, and you want to do your speech about CPR. You think CPR is important, it's good to know. First thing I'm going to say to you is, don't try to tell us to learn CPR. Do not try to convince us that we should do that. If you even think of saying, okay, but, then do not use this topic. It's going to be too difficult for you to keep yourself from taking that step. You are going to be so close to the line of persuasion, and you're going to end up stepping over it. CPR for an informative speech can be kind of a how-to. That's perfectly fine. Just don't, in the end, make that little appeal to get us to go and, okay, now that you know how to do it, go get certified. Do not do that. You could also do, and I've always encouraged people to look at the history of CPR. Yes, I've been certified a few different times in my life, and every time I get certified, it seems like something has changed. And so I'm always curious, well, who even developed CPR? Where did it come from? Those would work for an informative speech, so long as you avoid that, don't get certified. Let's look at another one. Let's imagine that you often feel stressed. You're taking a psych class and you're learning about stress, and you're like, stress, I want to do stress for an informative topic. I want to tell people how to avoid, or how to tackle stress. So of course I'm going to say, don't try to tell us that we need to reduce stress. And you're going to say, oh, okay, but if you do that, then don't use this topic. So if you wanted to use stress for an informative speech, this is going to be really challenging. You might be able to explore the physiological ways that stress affects your body. Could look at that. You could maybe look at how the diagnosis of PTSD has changed. That would be something. Post-traumatic stress disorder, that might not be what we're exactly thinking about, but that would be something. I'm going to be honest, generally this is not a great topic for an informative speech, because you're going to want to try to convince us to reduce our stress. It's just kind of a natural reaction. Again, stick with nouns, person, place, or thing. So let's look at one more, will it work? Now, we're going to try this noun thing this time. And if you remember from the mini lecture about topic, I said, listen, be open. You never know when you're going to be inspired by something. So let's imagine that you were the dentist last week and you had to wait, and your phone was like only at 5%, so you decided to pick up a magazine laying it on the table, one of those weird things that, are in paper and have color pictures in it. Very outdated, but okay, so you're there. So, and there was information in this magazine that you were looking at about mummies. Now, you never really knew much about mummies. Maybe you watched Scooby-Doo, maybe you played that toilet paper mummy wrap game in elementary school, but you've really never given a whole lot of thought about mummies. And by the end of the article, they were summarizing some different ways that bodies can be mummified, including do-it-yourself mummification. You have never heard of this before in your life, and you thought to yourself, wow, this could be good for an informative speech topic. Well, you would probably be right. It would be a great informative speech topic. So let's see if we can take this subject of mummies, and remember, that's really broad, mummies. What are we going to talk about mummies? We got to narrow that down a little bit. So we could look at, you're just thinking about mummies. You're like, well, what are some famous mummies? There have been mummies in the movies and different things. You could look at that. Cultures that mummified their dead. That might be interesting to look at. Maybe you want to look at the ways, when I think mummies, I think Egypt. Maybe that's something that you're like, well, I want to see what they did. Maybe you're interested in mummies and burial rituals in some particular culture. There are lots, burial rituals at different cultures. Maybe this gets you thinking about that and you decide you're going to go do some research. Um, Maybe just like what was at the end of that article, you want to do a speech about ways to mummify a body. Okay, there would be taking mummies as a broad subject and narrowing it down into a topic that is probably more manageable. Ways to mummify a body. That could work. You could even get more specific about that. I'll tell you that in just a minute here. Okay, so let's say that you've gone out and you did a little bit of research. You're like, well, I think I can find some good stuff out there. There's some information. So my general purpose is to inform. This is an informative speech. And I want to inform my audience about the ways that a body can be mummified. There's my specific purpose. And now I need that central idea or that thesis statement, that thing that's very focused, and I'm going to use a previewing. I want my audience to understand or to learn, become more aware of any of those words. I want my audience to understand how to become a mummy, including natural, artificial, and self-mummification. Okay, that central idea keeps me very focused on what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to be talking about types of mummies. I'm not going to be talking about different cultures and what they did. I'm going to be talking about how to become a mummy. Natural ways, artificial ways, natural ways being, a body just dies and what happens with that. Artificial ways and self-mummification. Now, I would argue that you could take any one of those, either the natural, the artificial, or the self-mummification, and you could make that into your speech topic. But there's depth and breadth, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But this could work just fine for an informative speech that needs to be 7 to 10 minutes. All right. That's the process that you would go through. You would, be open to different topics. You're going to, come up with different, brainstorm ideas, see if I can focus this at all, and then make sure that you can get that it fits into your general purpose. You're creating the specific purpose, and then you're creating that central idea. The central idea being a previewing central idea. That central idea tells me what my main points are of my speech. My main points are natural mummification, artificial mummification, self-mummification, and that becomes your thesis statement that you can use in your introduction. Okay, so here's just a list of some topics that I have heard that have worked well for an informative speech. Now, I tend to be a bit of a curious person. I like learning about things that I don't know anything about. So I have learned about hydroponics. That was an interesting speech. Methods of execution. Genghis Khan. I never in my life learned about Genghis Khan until I was teaching this class. And I say to myself, why did I never learn about this man and the Mongolian Empire when I was in high school? Never learned about it. Interesting one. I had a student does, why does a chicken run around after its head is cut off? And that was a very even entertaining topic. But its purpose was informative. Skittles. Who knew there were so many different types of Skittles? Customs from a specific country. When I have students who are international students, I had a student a few years back. She was from India. She was married in India, and she did her speech about Indian wedding customs, and she brought in the dress that she wore. I mean, this happens over a course of many days, but she brought in the dress. It was absolutely breathtaking. Talk about personal credibility. It was a really interesting, informative speech. Types of clouds. One of those things, everyday things, right? We look at the sky, we see the sky, we may think, oh, it's going to rain, or oh, it's, nice blue sky, whatever. Do we really think about what different types of clouds there are? Why do leaves change color in the fall? Okay, maybe you'd have to go back to your, a middle school science class to think about that. Everyday things that we don't think much about but use on a regular basis. Those are the kind of things that can really stir our curiosity and make great informative speech topics. Topics that often do not work well for the informative speech. How to play a specific sport. It's just really hard to translate that, whether you're in a classroom, whether you're recording a speech, whatever the case might be. It's really hard to do how to play a specific sport. How to play a specific instrument. That's another thing that doesn't always translate well. It kind of depends. I did have a student once do a speech about, just guitar. Again, if we don't have one, it's kind of hard. So, how to cook something. Those can work great in a class, and I've even had students in virtual classes do how to cook something, but you really do need to have a strong visual aid. And for those, I'll have students who take this class virtually do how to cook something, and I always think, gosh, I wish we were in the classroom because then you could bring some to share. So, because sharing is always nice. Okay. Some general tips. Just about any topic can work if adapted to the audience. Adapted to the audience. I can't stress that enough. You need to give the audience a reason to care about the topic. Play to our curiosity. This is where delivery really does come into play. If you can sound excited about your topic, it's very easy to get the rest of us a little excited about your topic. A great topic delivered in a monotone style makes for a boring topic. Do not read to us. This preparation outline you're going to make is going to be big. A person who did not develop a speech should be able to deliver the speech from a preparation outline. You are not using your preparation outline to deliver a speech. You're going to use a keyword outline, because if you use that prep outline, you're going to read to us, and that's boring. Pick something that interests you or something you already know a little bit about. That makes you more excited. Read, watch TV, expose yourself to new information. You just might be inspired by something, like mummies.